I used to believe that growing older would finally give me the time to see the world, to stroll through cobbled European streets, to watch the sunset over distant oceans, to feel the freedom I never had in my working years. And for a while, that dream felt within reach. But something shifted when I turned 72. The brochures still looked beautiful. The flight deals still called my name. But deep inside, a quiet question kept echoing: can my body still follow where my heart wants to go? It's a silent dilemma many of us face as we step into our 70s and beyond. The desire to explore doesn't disappear. In fact, it may even grow stronger precisely because we know time is precious. Yet our bodies, our energy, and even our finances are no longer as forgiving as they once were. You see, no one really talks about the emotional cost of travel at this age. They don't tell you how deeply a delayed flight can exhaust you, how a small fall on unfamiliar ground can change everything, or how the joy of new places can sometimes come with unexpected risks, ones that linger long after the bags are unpacked. In this video, I want to walk with you not through the world's most exotic destinations, but through the 5 hidden dangers of traveling after 70 that many people don't realize until it's too late. Not to discourage you, but to protect you, to help you choose wisely, so that if you do travel, it's with joy, not regret. If you've ever found yourself torn between wanting to travel and wondering if it's still safe, please comment 1 below. And if this is something new for you, comment 0. I'm reading every story. And if what I share today resonates with your heart, I gently invite you to subscribe and click the bell so we don't lose touch on this journey we're walking together. Now, let's begin. Because sometimes the most important journey is simply knowing when to go and when to stay. Danger number 1: when your body travels slower than your heart. I had the will, but my body had other plans. That was the quiet confession my friend Eleanor shared after returning from what was supposed to be her trip of a lifetime. She had dreamed of visiting the national parks of the American West, the kind of open landscapes that once made her feel alive. But after 3 days of airport lines, early wake-ups, and miles of walking in the sun, she admitted something that surprised even herself. I was too tired to enjoy it. My body simply couldn't keep up. It's a truth many of us hesitate to say aloud. After all, we've spent a lifetime pushing through, raising families, working long hours, surviving loss and change. We pride ourselves on resilience. So when we reach retirement, we imagine we can finally enjoy the things we postponed. And yet, the body that once carried us through decades is now more delicate than we want to admit. After 70, even small physical demands can feel surprisingly large. What used to be a brisk walk across an airport now feels like a marathon. Sitting for long periods on flights, buses, or in waiting areas can leave our joints stiff, our muscles aching. We find ourselves needing rest not at the end of the day, but in the middle of it. But it's not just fatigue. There's a deeper emotional shift beneath it. For many seniors, there's an inner grief that comes with recognizing our limitations. That trip you dreamed of for years, it's suddenly not as simple as booking a ticket. There are medications to consider, mobility tools, extra days for recovery, and an honest conversation with yourself. Am I physically ready for this? This doesn't mean you can't travel. It means your approach must change. Eleanor's story had a silver lining. After her exhausting trip, she took a different kind of vacation, a cabin by a quiet lake just 2 hours from home. No rush, no long flights, just the sound of water and birds. For the first time in years, and she said, I didn't come home needing to recover. I came home healed. What if travel in your 70s wasn't about checking destinations off a list, but about checking in with your body and soul? What if the real journey is about honoring your new rhythm, not fighting against it? Because the truth is, when we force our bodies to meet unrealistic expectations, we not only miss the beauty around us, we miss the peace within us. So before you pack your bags, pause and ask, is this trip aligned with the energy I truly have today, or with the person I used to be? There is deep wisdom in that question. and even deeper healing in the answer. Coming up next, what happens when it's not your muscles that struggle, but your immune system? Let's talk about the invisible risks hiding in crowded places. Danger number 2, the invisible risks we breathe in. I used to love airports, Margaret told me, with a faint smile. The energy, the people, the feeling that something exciting was beginning. But now, I walk in and all I see are invisible threats. I carry 2 masks, a travel-size sanitizer, and still I don't feel safe. What changed? Not the airport, not the crowd, but the immune system quietly grows more vulnerable with age. After 70, our bodies aren't just slower to recover, they're also more open to infection. The common cold no longer feels so common. A mild case of food poisoning can linger for weeks, and a virus picked up from recycled airplane air might lead not just to coughs but to pneumonia, hospitalization, and long-term health setbacks. The risk is real, but it's also easy to ignore because we don't see it. We can see the mountain trail and decide it's too steep. We can feel our knees aching after a walk. But bacteria, viruses, contaminated surfaces, they're invisible. And for many seniors, they're the most underestimated danger of travel. Just last winter, my neighbor Jack returned from a Caribbean cruise. He hadn't been sick in years. But after just a few days at sea sharing buffet lines, crowded hallways, and airplane seats, he came home with a high fever and shortness of breath. By the time he reached the hospital, the diagnosis was clear respiratory infection compounded by dehydration. He spent nearly 10 days in bed. When I visited him later, he said softly, "The cruise was supposed to be a gift to myself. Instead, it became a warning." Here's the truth: most travel brochures won't tell you as we age. Our bodies need protection from the journey just as much as during the destination. Think of all the places we touch in transit: seatbelt buckles, doorknobs, elevator buttons, tray tables, railings, restrooms, menus. These surfaces often host germs that younger immune systems can shrug off, but that for older adults can trigger something far more serious. And it's not just viruses. Food safety becomes trickier too. A salad washed in unfamiliar water, a sauce made with unfiltered ice, spices that irritate a delicate stomach, meals eaten in a rush, without enough water. These small things pile up and suddenly, a trip becomes a recovery period. But here's the healing truth: you can travel with awareness. You can enjoy life without fear if you choose preparedness over impulsiveness. Wear a mask in high-traffic areas, not out of fear, but out of self-respect. Wash hands frequently and carry a sanitizer, not because you're fragile, but because you're wise. Stick to cooked foods, bottled water, and familiar ingredients, not to limit pleasure, but to protect it. Consult your doctor before a big trip and ask if travel vaccines or medications are advisable for your destination. And most importantly, listen to your body. A sore throat, a headache, a wave of fatigue, those are not inconveniences. They are signals. Honor them, because we travel not to prove we're young, but to stay well enough to enjoy what matters. And sometimes the most powerful choice is not how far we go, but how carefully we go. Danger number 3, the fatigue that follows you home. "We came back last Thursday," Paul said as we sat on a bench in the park. "But truthfully, I still haven't come back." I looked at him, puzzled. He smiled gently and pointed to his heart. "My body's home, but my energy, my joy, they're still recovering from the trip." Fatigue after travel is something we expect: to some extent, a little jet lag, a little muscle soreness. But after 70, that fatigue no longer fades in a night or two. It lingers, it settles in. And for many seniors, it quietly robs them of the joy they hope to gain from their journey. Why does this happen? Because travel at this age demands more than we often realize. Early wake-ups, long lines, flight delays, new time zones, disrupted sleep, different pillows, strange foods, missed medications, hours sitting cramped on planes. Unexpected walks through unfamiliar airports. It's a series of small things, but together, they become overwhelming. In our younger years, these were annoyances. In our later years, they're burdens on a system that's already working harder just to maintain balance. Let me tell you about Marie. She's 76 and full of life, still dances at church gatherings and makes the best peach cobbler in town. Last year, she treated herself to a trip to Italy. It had been her lifelong dream. She walked the cobblestones of Rome, sipped espresso in Florence, rode a gondola in Venice. But when she returned, her daughter found her napping for hours, struggling to keep food down, forgetting small things, and generally not herself. It wasn't an illness. It was exhausting. Marie later admitted it wasn't the trip that was hard. It was coming back from it that undid me. This kind of post-travel fatigue is not a weakness. It's the body's honest request for rest. And the older we get, the more we must learn to listen. Sleep, for instance, is harder to come by in strange places. Our internal clocks don't adjust as easily. A hotel room that's too hot, too cold, too noisy, or just not quite right can interrupt the very rest our body needs to recharge. Dehydration is another quiet thief. On planes, in transit, or sightseeing, we often forget to drink water or we avoid it to cut down on restroom trips. But even mild dehydration in older adults can cause dizziness, confusion, and extreme fatigue. And let's not forget digestion. New foods, especially rich or spicy ones, can upset stomachs that are used to routine. When digestion is off, energy drains. So what can we do? We don't have to stop traveling. We simply need to travel with more kindness toward ourselves. Plan fewer activities per day. Let rest be part of the itinerary, not just sleep. Schedule a recovery day or two after returning no appointments. No pressure. Stay hydrated, bring a reusable bottle and sip slowly throughout the day. Choose direct flights if possible, or build in long layovers to move and stretch. Bring sleep aids that comfort you, your own pillowcase, herbal tea, earplugs, or a familiar scent. Most of all, give yourself permission to feel tired without shame. You've carried the weight of years, memories, and responsibilities. If your body asks for gentleness, grant it, because true adventure is not about how far we go, but how fully we feel. Danger number 4, when one misstep changes everything. It happened in a second, Joan whispered, her fingers gently tracing the edge of her cane. Just one step off a curb in the wrong shoes, and I never walked the same way again. She had traveled to Portugal with her sister, hoping to relive their childhood bond on cobblestone streets in seaside towns. But one dim alley, one uneven sidewalk, and one moment of distraction turned a dream into a nightmare. I didn't think it would be that hard, she said. I didn't think my balance was that fragile. Falls are one of the greatest dangers facing older adults, not just at home, but especially while traveling. Unfamiliar paths, crowded tourist spots, slippery hotel floors, and poorly lit staircases all raise the stakes. What might be a minor stumble at home becomes a medical emergency thousands of miles away. And the consequences, they're not always just physical. A broken hip, a fractured wrist, a dislocated shoulder. These injuries don't just hurt, they change lives. They take away confidence. They bring on fear. And for many seniors, they begin a slow withdrawal from life itself, retreating from the very joys they sought through travel. Many older adults don't see the fall coming because it's not just about being clumsy. It's about tired legs after a long day. It's about unfamiliar shoes. It's about skipping lunch and feeling faint. It's about looking up at a monument instead of watching where you're walking. It's about pride, about not wanting to look old by asking for help or using a handrail. But strength at this age isn't pretending we don't need help. It's having the wisdom to ask for it. Let me tell you about Henry. He was 81 and had always walked confidently in no cane, no walker. But after a trip to a small European village with steep stone streets, he returned with a sprained knee and a bruised ego. I thought using a walking stick would make me look old, he confessed. Now I wish I had one the whole time. I wouldn't have missed half the trip sitting in a hotel room. Sometimes dignity looks like stability, not defiance. So what can you do? Choose comfortable, well-supported shoes with slip-resistant soles. Avoid destinations with uneven paths unless you're fully confident in your footing. Use walking sticks, a rollator, or cane not as a sign of weakness, but as a symbol of your self-respect. Request hotel rooms with accessible bathrooms and elevators. Allow your body time to rest. Fatigue increases the risk of missteps. And please don't let embarrassment become an injury. If you need help getting on a bus, use the handrail. If you feel dizzy, sit down. If the path looks uncertain, take the slower route. Your life is worth the pause. Because what many seniors learn too late is this: one fall can take away the independence they spent a lifetime protecting. But it doesn't have to be that way. When we walk with intention and honesty, we walk with safety and freedom. Up next, even if your steps are steady and your health is strong, there's one more danger that doesn't touch the body but empties the bank account. Let's talk about the financial traps no one warns you about after 70. Danger number 5, the high cost of not asking the right questions. I thought I'd planned everything. Walter sighed as he flipped through a folder of receipts, hospital forms, and flight cancellation notices. But the one thing I didn't ask: what happens if something goes wrong? Walter was 79, a retired teacher with a sharp mind and a generous heart. He and his wife had saved for years to take their anniversary trip to Greece. The flights were booked, the itinerary was printed, and they had even picked out matching hats for the photos. But halfway through the trip, his wife slipped in the hotel lobby, a fractured wrist, a night in the emergency room, and suddenly they were not tourists anymore. They were patients, stranded in a foreign country, tangled in paperwork and uncertainty. That's when Walter discovered something chilling. His regular health insurance didn't cover international care. The travel insurance they bought didn't include emergency evacuation, and the hospital required a $4,000 deposit before treatment could continue. This isn't rare. It's happening to seniors all over the world, the people who planned well, packed well, dreamed well, but didn't ask the right questions. Because the most expensive part of traveling after 70 isn't always the plane ticket or the hotel. It's the unexpected, the costs hiding in what we didn't know we needed. Here are just a few things many seniors never consider. Emergency medical care abroad is often not covered by Medicare or standard insurance. Air evacuations to return home can cost tens of thousands of dollars and must be paid up front. Trip cancellations due to illness, injury, or loss often result in non-refundable fees unless you have premium trip protection. Fraud and scams disproportionately target older adults, especially those traveling alone or appearing uncertain. Just ask Gloria. She was 74, full of spirit, and eager to see the northern lights in Iceland. She booked what looked like a charming cabin online, only to discover upon arrival that the listing was fake. She stood in the snow, suitcase in hand, thousands of dollars lost, no place to stay. I didn't even know people could fake something like that, she said, teary-eyed. I thought I was being careful. But being careful today means being informed. And that starts by asking questions that may feel uncomfortable because the answers might just save your peace of mind and your retirement savings. Here's a starting list for anyone over 70 considering a trip. Does your travel insurance include international medical coverage and evacuation? What is the refund policy for each booking? Are you okay losing that money if plans change suddenly? Do you know the emergency number for medical help at your destination? Are you using secure websites and verified agencies when booking trips or accommodations? Do you carry only what's necessary and protect credit card details from being skimmed or photographed? And perhaps the most important, do you feel comfortable saying no to a deal that feels too good to be true? Because you are not just a tourist, you are a keeper of a lifetime's worth of wisdom, memories, and resources. Protecting that isn't fear, it's love. For yourself, for your family, for your peace. Walter and his wife eventually made it home. Their bank account was dented, but their perspective had changed. We'll still travel, he told me. But next time, we'll plan for what we hope won't happen because that's how we'll make sure it doesn't ruin everything. Coming up next. So if travel after 70 carries all these risks, does that mean we should just stay home forever? Not necessarily. Let's explore a gentler, wiser way to rediscover the world, starting closer than you might think. Sometimes after all the planning, packing, and precaution, the soul returns from a trip feeling more worn than awakened. And in those quiet moments of recovery, a deeper question begins to whisper, must I go far to feel alive? Or is there something beautiful waiting much closer to home? Danger number 6. You don't have to go far to feel alive. There's a common belief that the farther we travel, the richer the experience. That happiness waits in foreign cities, across oceans, in postcard landscapes we've only seen from afar. But after 70, that idea begins to lose its hold and something softer, truer begins to emerge. It's not the distance that moves us. It's the presence we bring to where we are. As we grow older, our definition of adventure naturally shifts. It's no longer measured by miles on a map, but by the depth of feeling within a moment. A quiet garden in your neighborhood can be more profound than a tour through ancient ruins. A simple morning walk under familiar trees can spark more gratitude than standing atop a distant mountain. Because now, the value of a journey isn't in the number of photos we take, but in how deeply we notice, how fully we feel. Traveling after 70 doesn't have to mean crossing borders. It can mean crossing back into your own life with new eyes. Visiting that museum you've passed for years, exploring the farmer's market in a nearby town, sitting by a river just 30 minutes away, hearing it speak in a way you never had time to hear before. These close-by discoveries require less strain on the body, less risk, and yet offer just as much nourishment for the soul. More importantly, they allow for what many of us crave most at this stage of life: peace, safety, and the freedom to be fully ourselves without rushing, choosing local travel, slow travel, or even still travel where the point is simply to rest deeply in a place is not a compromise. It's a refinement. It's wisdom speaking louder than wanderlust. And in truth, when we're no longer trying to impress anyone with where we've been, we start to truly arrive where we are. There's also something deeply spiritual about staying close. In the silence of nearby nature, in the pause of a slower morning, we hear not just birds or breezes, we hear our own hearts more clearly. We begin to reconnect with the parts of ourselves that the noise of airports and itineraries often drown out. It's not about limiting your world. It's about opening your eyes to the part of the world you've long ignored your own. Aging invites us into this softer rhythm, not to stop us from exploring, but to guide us toward a richer, more present experience of life. We begin to ask not how far can I go, but how deep can I feel right here in this quiet way? We rediscover a truth we've always known but often forgot, that beauty is not always somewhere else. That meaning doesn't wait on the other side of a plane ticket. That joy, real, steady, nourishing joy, can be found in the nearness of life. So if the body says no to a big adventure, listen, but don't confuse that no with a closing door. Sometimes it's simply an invitation to explore something smaller, simpler, and far more sacred. Because life after 70 is not about shrinking, it's about sharpening. Sharpening what matters. Sharpening how we love. Sharpening how we see, even the smallest things. In the next part, we'll go even deeper, not into new places, but into a new way of being. Because maybe what we're really seeking through travel is a feeling that's always lived within us. Danger number 7. What we're really searching for. When we travel, somewhere along the way, many of us were taught to equate travel with fulfillment, that the more stamps in our passport, the more meaningful our life must be. That happiness lives in far-off places, in once-in-a-lifetime experiences, in doing what others dream of. But as we enter our 70s and beyond, that illusion begins to fade. The suitcases become heavier, the airports more chaotic, and the crowds more exhausting than exciting. And we start to realize maybe what we've been chasing all this time wasn't a destination, but a feeling, a sense of aliveness, a sense of freedom, a moment where everything feels new, not because we're somewhere else, but because we're awake again inside. Think about it. Why do we truly want to travel? Is it to rest, to reconnect, to escape the noise of routine, to feel wonder again? Or is it simply to feel alive in a way that daily life no longer seems to offer? These are questions worth asking, not to talk ourselves out of travel, but to walk ourselves into truth. Because if what we really seek is peace, connection, or renewal, must that come with a plane ticket? Could it come, instead, from slowing down enough to notice life as it is right here? Right now, there is a certain kind of courage in staying still, in no longer needing the excitement of movement to justify our worth, in saying, I don't need to go far to matter. I already do. This shift is not giving up, it's growing up. It's soul growth, not social proof. And perhaps one of the most powerful things we can do after 70 is to reclaim joy from the pressure of always doing more. To understand that rest is not a retreat, but a return. To discover that the longing to travel may really be a longing to come home to ourselves. This doesn't mean we stop dreaming. We don't have to stop imagining the Eiffel Tower or the Grand Canyon, but we also don't need to attach our joy to reaching them. We can dream without demand. We can hope without hurry. And sometimes the most nourishing journey is the one where we sit quietly in our own kitchen, tea in hand, memory in heart, and say, I have seen so much, and I don't need to chase anything more to be whole. There's a sacred beauty in that kind of presence. It's the kind of moment that no photo can capture and no passport can prove. So the next time your heart says, I want to go, take a breath, ask it gently. What are you really seeking? If it's peace, perhaps that's found in stillness. If it's a connection, perhaps that's found in conversation. If it's a wonder, perhaps that's found in noticing the light through your window. Because the destination we often long for is not on the map. It's in the way we feel when we finally return to ourselves. In the next part, we'll reflect on how aging gives us not less, but more reasons to travel inward, to seek stillness, and to honor the rhythm of life as it unfolds naturally. Let's take that final step together with wisdom, grace, and peace. Danger number 8. Aging isn't the end of the journey. It's the beginning of a deeper one. There's a quiet misconception that growing old means shrinking in movement, in relevance, in possibility. That life after 70 becomes a slow winding down, a retreat from the world we once moved through so confidently. But what if that idea is all wrong? What if aging isn't about stopping, but about deepening? You see, when we were younger, travel was often about collection of places, photos, memories, moments. But after 70, the soul begins to crave something else, something richer than movement. It begins to crave meaning, not just seeing more, but feeling deeper, not just going farther, but returning closer to self, to silence, to spirit. In this chapter of life, the journey becomes less about where we're going and more about how we're walking through the world, with more reverence and with more slowness, with more presence. And that shift, it's not a loss, it's grace. Because the truth is, there's no timeline for discovery. Some of the most profound awakenings happen not in airports or cities, but in a single quiet afternoon, when the world outside is still and the world inside begins to speak. Aging grants us this space to reflect, to listen, to observe, to walk into a garden and feel the wind differently, to watch the light change on the wall and know it as a sacred rhythm, to hear a bird call and remember a song from childhood. These are not small things. They are the soul's travel journal in its finest pages. And here's the gentle miracle when you live this way. Every moment becomes a journey. The morning sunlight through your kitchen window becomes a sunrise over the Grand Canyon. A warm conversation with a grandchild becomes more memorable than a tour through Europe. A slow walk through the local park becomes a pilgrimage of presence and peace. It's not about having fewer adventures. It's about redefining what adventure means, no longer tied to distance or novelty, but to depth, to being awake wherever you are. This doesn't mean we stop planning or dreaming or moving. It just means we begin honoring what truly matters along the way. Aging teaches us how to travel through life with gentler feet and wider hearts. It reminds us that joy is not in the rush, but in the rhythm. That freedom isn't in getting away, but in being okay with where we are. And that is the most beautiful destination we can arrive at after 70, is a life we no longer feel the need to escape from. So if the world feels a little smaller now, if your steps feel slower, don't despair. You haven't stopped moving. You've simply begun moving differently, with more wisdom, with more care, with more truth. And that, dear friend, is not the end of the journey. It's the beginning of the journey that truly matters. In our final section, we'll bring all these reflections home and offer a final message of peace and hope for anyone wondering, is it still worth dreaming after 70? The answer may surprise you. Let's close this journey together. Danger number 9, the most beautiful journeys. Begin inside. There's a kind of journey no plane can take you on. No passport can stamp it. No camera can capture it. It's the journey into the soul, the quiet turning inward, that often only begins when the noise of the outside world begins to soften. And for many of us, that moment begins after 70. Because once the striving slows and the pressure to do more fades, something remarkable happens. We begin to ask not where we are going, but who we have become. We begin to listen not to the voice of the tour guide or the airline schedule, but to the voice that has waited patiently within us for decades. And that voice often says gently, come home. Come home not to a house or city, but to the truth of who you are now. Not who you were in your career, not who you were in someone else's expectations, but the you that has endured, that has softened, that has grown luminous in stillness. In this phase of life, the greatest discovery may not be a faraway land. It may be the parts of yourself you never had time to explore when the world demanded so much of you. Your kindness that went unnoticed, your resilience that carried generations, your tenderness, hidden beneath years of responsibility, your deep, unshakable wisdom, the kind that can't be Googled, the kind earned through living. And when you finally sit with these parts of yourself, something miraculous unfolds. You no longer chase meaning, you become it. You no longer need to be in a majestic place to feel awe. You bring awe with you, in the way you pause, in the way you notice, in the way you love. This is the essence of aging gracefully, not in resisting what changes, but in embracing what deepens. So if travel has become harder for you, or if your heart aches for places you may never see again, please don't grieve the road not taken. Celebrate the path within the one only you can walk, the one that leads to peace, to clarity, to contentment. You may not stand at the edge of the Grand Canyon, but you may sit quietly at dawn, hearing your own breath, feeling the miracle of being alive still here, still capable of wonder. You may not sail the oceans, but you may gaze at the soft ripples in your cup of tea, letting stillness fill your soul like warm sunlight. And you may not photograph the Eiffel Tower, but you may close your eyes and remember every face that ever loved you, and that is a far richer monument than any built by stone. This is not poetic exaggeration. It is a truth many don't discover until life slows them down long enough to see it. You don't have to be everywhere. You just have to be here, fully, gently, truthfully. And when you live this way, even the smallest details become sacred. The sound of birds outside your window, the worn softness of your favorite chair, the feeling of your own hands wrinkled, perhaps, but still capable of holding so much grace. This is what it means to travel through life in your 70s, 80s, and beyond. Not with urgency, but with reverence. Not with pressure, but with presence. And in doing so, you arrive not at a destination, but at a truth that lives quietly at the center of it all. I am still becoming. I am still beautiful. And I am still on a journey. In our closing chapter, let's gather everything we've shared: memories, wisdom, and reflection, and bring it home to the heart. Because aging isn't the end of your story. It's where the most meaningful pages begin. Danger number 10, coming home to yourself, the final destination. As we arrive at the final stretch of this journey together, I invite you to take a long, slow breath. Not because we're finished, but because something in you may have quietly opened. A window, a memory, a question, or perhaps a new kind of softness you hadn't felt in a while. We began this video with the question, is traveling after 70 still a good idea? But now, after everything we've explored together, perhaps the better question is this: what kind of journey does your soul need most now? For some, that may still mean booking a flight, packing a bag, and stepping into the unknown. For others, it may mean sitting in your favorite chair, listening to the wind move through the trees, and realizing you are already enough, right where you are. There is no right answer. There is only your answer. Because aging is not about following someone else's map. It's about creating your own. We live in a world that constantly tells us to keep going, to keep doing, to keep proving that we are still useful, still vibrant, still young at heart. But you know what's even more powerful than staying young? Staying true. True to what your body tells you. True to what your spirit craves. True to the rhythm of your own life, no matter how quiet, slow, or simple it may seem to others. You've walked through decades of change, loss, love, effort, and discovery. You don't need to climb another mountain to prove anything. Your life is the mountain, and the view from here, it's breathtaking. If travel calls to you, go, but go gently. Go with preparation. Go with reverence. Go not to escape your life, but to honor it. And if the calling now is to stay close to home, to find beauty in routine and peace in quiet places, then follow that, too. Because there is as much wonder in watching the light change across your living room wall as there is in watching the sunset from another country. You are not falling behind by slowing down. You are not giving up by saying no to one more trip. You are simply returning to what matters most, to rest, to reflection, to truth. And perhaps the greatest truth of all is this: you don't need to see the world to have a life that is whole. You only need to see yourself clearly, kindly, and completely. So wherever your feet may lead from here, whether near or far, whether bold or still, I hope you walk with tenderness. I hope you walk with grace. I hope you remember that even in your slowing down, you are still becoming, and that every step, even the smallest one, still counts as a journey worth taking. Before we part ways, I want to ask you this. Which part of today's reflection made you pause for a moment? Which story, question, or image stayed with you? Please share in the comments. I truly read every word. And if this video touched your heart in any way, I gently invite you to subscribe, click the bell, and stay close. Because the next story we share here may hold just what your soul didn't know it needed. Thank you for being here. And wherever your journey leads next, may it bring you closer to peace, to joy, and always to yourself. When we first began this conversation, I asked a question that might have felt practical, even a little logistical. Is it still wise to travel after 70? But after walking through stories, reflections, and truths that rarely make it into glossy brochures, perhaps we now realize the real question was never just about travel. It was about how we move through life, how we honor our changing needs, how we choose presence over pressure and meaning over momentum. Because aging doesn't ask us to stop dreaming. It simply invites us to dream differently, to trade frantic sightseeing for mindful seeing, to exchange distant escapes for inner peace, to recognize that the most healing journeys often begin not on the road, but in the still, quiet moments when we finally come home to ourselves. Some of us may still feel the pull of travel, and that's beautiful. But now we go not to prove we can, but because we've prepared with wisdom, We go not to tick boxes off a list, but to deepen the joy of living fully in each passing day. And others may feel a letting go, a shift towards slowing down, staying near, or even staying still. That, too, is beautiful, because when we no longer feel we must chase the world, we start seeing the wonder already around us, already within us. Maybe that's the quiet wisdom of this chapter in life, not a closing of the story, but a turning of the page to a slower rhythm, a softer voice, a deeper kind of joy. So let me ask you now, heart to heart, which part of this journey touched you most today? Was there a sentence that stayed with you? A question you didn't know you needed? Please share it with me in the comments. Your words matter. I read every single one. If this message gave you something, a pause, a comfort, a sense of being understood, then I invite you gently to subscribe, to click the bell, and walk with us again next time. Because this channel isn't just about information, it's about companionship, about choosing to age not in fear, but in faith, not in isolation, but in community, not in decline, but in depth. And if you're wondering what comes next, stay close. In the next video, we'll uncover a story even more unexpected, one that may just change how you see growing older, not as a loss, but as a quiet triumph. Until then, let me leave you with this. In the end, we don't remember the places, we remember how we felt in them. And the most beautiful feeling of all is peace. Take care, dear soul. The journey continues, just in a more meaningful way. We'll walk it together.